Hello, everyone. I'm so honored that you came to listen today and get something done in your home. And today I would like to welcome you to the guest room in the manse, the side that's cleaned up. And I'm going to tilt the camera so you can see what I'm up against here and what I'm sacrificing so that I can come and talk to you, what I have not done. You see all that pile there? I had to move all the cots and the bedding that went with it to this room so that I could clean up that room and behind it and everything. And I thought if I wait until I've got that done, I will never come and talk to you. And it reminds me, I was talking to a friend the other day who's also vital. And don't you think when we get vital, we should get a little more witty? And that's why we need to keep our minds sharp. She said to me, I feel like with her home, she was just like mine where I've staged this part, but over there is the reality. She said she had a quote by General Douglas MacArthur, I believe in the 1930s, 40s, or 50s, I'm not sure. And he said, the enemy is in front of us. The enemy is behind us. The enemy is to the left of us. The enemy is to the right of us. We can attack at any angle. And then if he had to retreat, he would say, we are not retreating. We're just finding a different way to attack. And so I say, the clutter is to the right of me. The chaos is to the left of me. The disorganization is in front of me. The dirt is in back of me. I can attack at any angle. But today, I've decided to spend a little time with you, and my camera hasn't been working, and today it's working, so I thought I better jump on here and do it before it's all gone. It's kind of like my thoughts. If I don't speak what I'm thinking, and I think of something particularly wise, if I don't stop and speak it, it flies away right out of my head. And excuse me. So I'm Mrs. Sherman. Welcome to the manse. The manse is going through some changes as usual. Anytime you live in an old house, there's always going to be something that needs to be repaired, replaced, undone, redone. The roof, the floor, the walls, and so you understand why I sometimes can't get here. There's always some kind of commotion, there's some kind of noise, or there's someone here. And I would love to come more often, and someday I am going to make enough money from your donations to make myself a little add-on studio just outside of this house. And it might be a wall tent, I don't know, but it will be better than having to scramble and push everything aside while I get ready for this. And today I have quite a lot to talk to you about, and I'm going to embarrass myself because I'm going to talk about singing, and I might sing even though I'm not a singer. So you can always mute it, you know. And so that goes along with the I've decided to quit. I have a friend who's in caregiving, and she was always informing me about self-care and why they have to, in this organization she's in, why they are required to take a week off every couple of weeks and go and just rest. And it reminds me of Queen Margrethe of Denmark, who had a holiday home and was asked on an interview why she has a holiday home, why they have a place they go. She says, because with the public, working with the public, speaking to the public, appearing in public, takes a lot out of you. And so we have to go, and we have to retreat, and we have to recover and restore and repair our minds and our bodies. And if we don't have that time off, you don't have us. And so that's one of the things I wanted to discuss, was that every homemaker, and by the way, if you've got something to do, please go and do it. There isn't any, well, there might be something here to see. I wanted to show you my teacup. I thought it kind of went with my outfit here. And I'm sitting in front of that Barbara Mock print that I like so much because of the little boat here. It reminds me of the boat my father built for my mother, and the little lake that we lived by. That whole scene is, to me, just wonderful. And I'm so grateful I could find it on Walmart.com. I know a lot of people object to me shopping for Walmart, but that's my only option right now, and that's the way I have to do it now. And so we'll start out with your preparation. If you're having trouble getting started, I have suggested that just get up and start walking through the house. Get whatever it is you drink, whether it's a lemon. I would really recommend a little wedge of lemon and some water in a nice fancy glass, and sip that. That is so cleansing, and it's an antiseptic. And they say honey is an antibiotic and lemon is an antiseptic, and that combination is very, very good for you. And as a homemaker, you're the machine that works there at home, but you also have to keep your spiritual side and your emotions balanced. And that's why I suggest healthy care. Take care of yourself, because your family depends on you to be stable and happy. And so many times I have noticed in talking to my friend that people whose bodies aren't quite balanced and who are unhealthy in some way, maybe overweight, maybe with other things, are often anxious, have more anxiety. As a matter of fact, someone I know that works in a nursing home says that when the residents get anxious, oftentimes they haven't had proper elimination there. And so really watch all these functions of your body. Even the Bible talks about it. So with preparation, that's the first thing we want to cover to get ready for the day. I remember someone saying that before she could even face her family, she went into her bathroom and she bathed and she dressed and she fixed her hair and she wore cosmetics, so she fixed her face. And I looked up the word cosmetic, and it just meant arrangement, to arrange. And it refers to the sky with all the stars and the planets and the sun and the moon and everything in its place. And so that's what cosmetic means. And so also to treat yourself nice, because if you don't, then you will find homemaking drudgery. And we studied about that in one of the books that I was reading, is that remember that homemaking and all work is part drudgery. And if you want the joy that comes with it, you have to do the drudgery part, because here comes the results and they make you happy. And whatever makes you happy will make you thrive. And so today, let's start out with preparation. And with preparation, I include 5 things. You might make up your own. And by the way, these are just ideas and suggestions based on my own observation and some of my experience. And my life has at times been rather wild and unconventional. I am married to a preacher for 50 years, and before that, I grew up on a homestead in Alaska with my family, and then of course been many places since then, and discovered many things. And I can't give perfect advice, but you can always check it out in the scriptures to see if it lines up. And I will have something to say about husbands and something to say about children, but it will just be my general experience and observation, and yours will be different. And the main thing is that you know the needs of your own family members, and if it works with them, then that's what you do. But you don't want to take my ideas and just apply them arbitrarily. You have to make sure it works with your family. And sometimes it's hard, isn't it? I'll get to watching someone on YouTube who's going through everything and purging all her stuff, and I'll think, oh, I should do that, and I'll go get in a mood to do all that, and later on regret it because I overdid it. And then I'm in a place where seasons change, and while I might think that I have too many pairs of gloves and hats and socks, when that season comes around, I'm awfully glad that I didn't get rid of them. My problem is space, and the manse is, I believe, is it as wide as a double wide? I think it might be as wide as a ship, some small ship. And my problem is I don't want to stuff too much in here. And as a matter of fact, on my birthday, I asked my family not to give me anything that could not fit into an envelope. And they just went all wild on my birthday, sending me stuff in envelopes, but there wasn't any money. I think I was alluding to perhaps the XX amount of dollars that I have earned by now. We used to give our children $1 for every year old they were. And now that they're all approaching 50, we're not sure we can keep that up. So we're thinking we might do the envelope thing and just give them advice and put it in a card. But anyway, some of these are interesting, and I will go through them and show you what they are. They're quite useful and quite clever. How they spent so much time. All these people spent so much time. Some of the envelopes have several people involved in it, giving me gifts that I wouldn't have to find a place for. But now, of course, I've got to find a place for this. But they're very good. It's exciting, isn't it? It's great to be alive. Even if you don't think much of yourself and you're not very happy, if your life isn't being threatened, that's a better state to be in. So let's start with preparation. And the first thing, of course, is get yourself awake. And Brian Kozlowski's book, The Jane Austen Diet, it isn't a diet, it's a lifestyle book. And it's more than food and exercise. Most diet books you get are about food or exercise. And it's about limiting or changing or something. But this is about the whole day, starting at sunrise. And he even goes in here about how the Regency people knew how valuable being in the sunrise was and what a benefit that was to the mind and the body. He has a whole section on the mind-body connection, a whole section on light, on how blue light, that's what comes in the sunrise in the morning, and how it's natural blue light and how beneficial it is. And so we want to start out with your preparation. So he suggests that they did not have their tea or coffee till after they had been up for a while, and the natural light and their bodies would wake themselves up. They would not hit their bodies with anything until they were actually naturally awakened. So they would wait and go outside maybe and not come in to breakfast till 9 o'clock. I think that's very interesting. And so the first thing, of course, walk through your house and open the windows. A friend of mine, who's also vital, has been sending me information about this lady on YouTube that does she's reading out of a 1926 or 24 homemaking book, and it suggests you get up in the morning and open the windows, and then you close them after a couple of hours. I find that interesting. So that's a nice little ritual, something to look forward to get up and do. And then after you have walked through your house and thrown open the windows, you can go into the bathroom, bathe, and get started with your fresh new canvas and fix your hair and do yourself up and wear the prettiest thing you can for your home, because it changes your attitude. It changes your mood. And if you're a homemaker, I've got a closet over here with clothes that I have made, and some of them are costumes and others are formal wear. Well, the formal wear tends to hang in there and not be used. And so I decided I would just use them, because if you're a homemaker, there's nobody going to regulate the uniform that you wear. There's no one going to tell you you can't wear that. You do have to learn, if you're wearing a dress or a long skirt, you're going to walk and work a little differently, a little more carefully, not like an athlete so much. And you will be taking the sides of your skirt and moving them close to you as you go past something so it doesn't get caught. You learn to walk in a different way. You actually learn to be more graceful. And I haven't quite managed it yet, but you might. And anyway, I hope that you are doing the best you can with what you have, and that you have great plans for your own improvement. So, preparation involves prayer. I like to go and get myself dressed first, and then dedicate myself to prayer, and also to a little bit of stretching, a little bit of exercise. I look it up sometimes on YouTube and find someone who's doing an exercise that's just for the morning, just a stretch for beginners, who are over a certain age. And really, if you have children at home and they're not used to exercise, go to the over 50 exercises. They're quite nice, and they don't have to jump around too much if they don't want to, and it's easy to get used to it, and you can ease them into it. And really, everything that you do, if you've got children around you, if they can learn at your side, they can learn at your elbow. Whatever you do, then you're teaching them those habits. You are teaching them how to wake up in the morning. You're teaching them how to lay there and look around and watch the sunrise. And you're teaching them how to get up slowly and walk through maybe the house, how to go and use the bathroom and clean themselves up and leave the bathroom tidy. And you've got time for that if you're home with your children and you're teaching them yourself. And this is really important because a child will be most like the person he is around the most. And that's a frightening thought when we think of how much we have outsourced. Even homeschoolers, they'll outsource some kind of thing that they don't know how to do, and then find out later that the teacher was telling them something that goes against their family values. So we have to be so careful. And we have so much that we can tell them. Even if you're vital and you're just talking to grandchildren, you have a lot that you can do. And one of the things would be how you get ready, what your appearance is like. If you're upset because maybe your children or grandchildren don't care how they look or what they're wearing, then you pay special attention to what you're doing. Remember that book I read years ago to you on here called Christy, and it was written by Peter Marshall's wife, Catherine Marshall, and he had written many sermons, and he was the chaplain for the U.S. Senate between 1946 and 1948, and he had written many sermons. And anyway, in this book, Christy, which was about Catherine Marshall's mother who went into the Appalachians and taught school, she said that when she saw how poorly the students dressed and their clothes were dirty and they themselves were not clean and they smelled bad, she made extra attempt to have a fresh blouse on and to be freshly bathed and to smell good and to have clean hair. Well, this is how you do it. This is part of teaching. So if you're upset because your children don't care anymore, then make sure you are the living teaching. You're the living example. And so for preparation, we're going to walk through, get ourselves awake, maybe then get a cup of whatever it is you drink in the morning, and get your bathing done, your dressing. Make sure you're dressing in something that makes you happy and that other people will enjoy looking at. You know, it's kind of like a ministry. You may never get a chance to say anything to anybody about what you believe, but the way you dress will give an instant remark to someone. You might not think it's any problem or any trouble, but if you are a vital age, how much do you think that someone who's younger than you would admire how you look? Are you dressed or behaving in such a way that a young person would say to themselves, I want to be like that when I get vital? And think about that if we're relevant to any generation or any people around us, and be very careful what we wear. I see women all the time that are even older than me, and I know they have money, but they don't have any desire to improve themselves at all. And there's always room for improvement. And so what we want to do is use the first 5 minutes you have for preparation, and that's your restoration or your refreshment or just establishing yourself for the day. I discussed in the past how we seem to have given up a lot of things that buffered us from raw stress, and one of them might be the time you spend in front of the mirror getting ready. There's nothing wrong with that. You get to look to see if your eyes have gotten hard and bitter, and you get to look at yourself and straighten your attitude up. And so we used to do things like spend a little time like that, and maybe even experiment with different hairstyles and different clothing And what happened was we reached a certain age, we became vital, and we thought, well, this is how I have to look. This is how I have to dress. But you don't. You can go back. We can have a redo. And go back and enjoy picking out new things, trying out new things, and enjoying life. The other thing is that your walk through the house can involve a few very simple, harmless stretches. If you have a stiffness anywhere, you can move it. I know a lady who had a very stiff shoulder, and she was facing surgery and a long stay at home, recumbent, and she just decided she would just move that a little bit at a time. And she found some exercises online. She started doing them. So when she went in again to check on it, they decided that she didn't need any surgery. But these little things you can move and pretty soon get limbered up in a very simple way. But you can go to these therapists online that really are physical therapists and know what they're doing, and do some of these things. And so then you also have your list, and your list can be your guide. I've got a list here. I don't know if I can actually read my writing, but this is just a guide, and if I miss some of it, I'm probably not going to kick myself so much. And so your appearance helps you to improve your attitude. And the older women are in particular responsible to be an example. And I say that because of Titus 2. Now, a lot of people, especially the teacher type people, will read Titus 2 and they'll focus on obeying your husband, and that's all they talk about. But let's see. You're going to be interested in this, because when I said the older women are responsible for this appearance thing, you're responsible to show a good example of a happy countenance and a good appearance. So let's see. Older women, likewise, it's comparing to what the older men, because it just got finished telling what the older men were supposed to be doing. And so if you want to read that, go to Titus 2, because the one to older women is addressed in verse 3. Older women, likewise, just like the men, are to be reverent in their behavior. Reverent means serious and not silly. Not slanderers or slaves to much wine. That means they're going to have a sobered, serious attitude. They are to teach what is good. That's the first thing. Then comes training the children and loving their husbands and being self-controlled and pure and working at home, kind. And so remember, the first thing the older women were told was to be reverent in their behavior. And the next thing was teach what is good. So teaching people a whole lot of things that involves everything that's in here that's good. We're allowed to and responsible to teach what is good. There are some people who fancy themselves Titus 2 teachers, and they will only teach submission to husbands. That's it. But that whole chapter has a whole lot of things that we're supposed to be teaching, and one of them is to teach what is good. And so I hope that everything that I say in here is good. But basically, when we're talking about appearance and getting ready, we vital women are particularly responsible for being the example. Because many times, let's face it, you're not going to get a class. You're not going to be able to talk to anyone. No one's going to come up to you and say, older woman, how am I supposed to live? They're not going to do that. But that appearance opens the door sometimes to conversation. And also, the example is inspiring. And they will go home. If you're wearing something nice, a dress particularly, they'll remember that. It gets in their head. And people of all ages, and they'll go home and get inspired by it and say, I want to dress somewhat like that. And they'll find something, but it'll get in their minds. But someone once told me, that was in the university years ago, when people were just doing freaky things to their appearance where, you just didn't want to get near them because everything was just masked and clownish and sticking out and outrageous and edgy. And of course, you'd go over to the other side of the street, you didn't want to walk past them. And he told me something interesting. He said they do that on purpose to repulse everyone, and they'll stay away from them. So they really shield themselves from wisdom. They shield themselves from the older people who would instruct them, because no one wants to be around somebody who looks like that, kind of like the guy on the airplane in Don't Get Mad, Get Even. Remember that book by Alan Abel? He said if you didn't want anyone to sit in the seat next to you, to take a string that looked like a piece of spaghetti and stick it in your mouth and just let it hang out there, and no one wants to sit next to you. Well, that's the way people repulse other people. But let's be careful, you vital ladies and you women at home with children, that you're not repulsing the younger women by your appearance, and just do the absolute spiffing best you possibly can, because even if no one wants to follow, you'll lift your own self up. It's part of your attempt to revive yourself so that you can be a good caregiver. Now, I've spoken 25 minutes on the appearance, but so I want to go back, and it's prayer. I like to do the appearance and then the prayer, because I feel like I'm a clean and better shape to talk to God, which I know we can pray anytime. We all know that. But I like to dress up, and then I'll pray over the list that I've made, that God would give me a good attitude, especially if there's something that looks insurmountable and formidable on the left, and chaotic and disorganized on the right. I'll ask God to help me find which side to attack first. And I'll need to do that. So your list is your guide, and you might not get it all done. I know today I was realistic, and I thought I'm going to get 2 things done today, and I'm not going to. Usually if I'll say I'm going to give myself 2 things to do, I'm able to do more. So we want to also, I had talked quite a bit about in the past about stress and how it debilitates us, and how bad it is for the mind and the body, for the home, and how stress comes into the home sometimes. You want that to be the refuge, but unfortunately people are people, and they might bring stress to you. But in the olden days, people could be confronted with some of the things that members of the family did or a husband did, and not be totally melted down or knocked over by it. So what is it that we've given up? Well, we don't have intermittent rest. We don't have, we leave ourselves open to constant work and constant problems and constant thinking about stress. And so we have to have an intermittent rest from it, intermittent refreshments. And I suggested the lemon balm tea, which some of the doctors on YouTube recommend for relief from stress. Let's do intermittent reading, intermittent letter writing, intermittent reaching as you go through your home. If you don't have time for exercise, you can intersperse it all throughout your homemaking. If you have to pick something up, you reach just a little further and stretch. And if you have to get something, you reach a little bit more. And when you're walking through the house, you can roll your shoulders. There are many things you can do to have the intermittent exercise or renewal throughout your day. And I would suggest you dot your day with all these things. Now, I had a friend that was enduring terrible stress, and it was actually from her own family, her relatives, and putting a lot of stress on her. And it happens sometimes to homemakers, because people think that they aren't doing anything, and that they can withstand all this, or that they can just dump all over them. Everybody else is at work, so they use the homemaker as a sounding board. And this woman was having so much stress, and she knew an elderly woman, and she went to her, and the elderly woman says, "Well, I can tell you what to do, and I'd like you to do it." She said, "And I want you to report back to me to see if you did it every day." And she gave her a little chart, showed her how to make a little box that you could put an X in beside everything. And here's what she wanted her to do every day, but disperse it throughout the day. this woman was having a hard time getting her homemaking done because her mind wasn't focused on it with all the problems that other people were presenting her with, and also would give her great fear. What happens if, the bank closes and I can't keep my house, and I can't pay my groceries, and what's going to happen? And she was just a bundle of nerves. So this lady said to her, I want you to walk, I want you to sing, and she'd give her like 5 minutes for each thing. And I want you to read one paragraph out of a book, any kind of a book, a devotional book, a classical book, a good book, anything. And I want you to write something every day, just a sentence. I want you to rock, if you have a rocking chair. And I want you to smile and find something to laugh about. And I want you to prepare a menu or prepare your own food, and do that every day. And so she said that only after a few days of doing it, she felt like she was a changed woman. And after all the years of carrying around stress, she was able to do that. She included prayer and scripture in there too. She said just one sentence in the scriptures and one prayer, and so that none of this is burdensome. And so when I got to the singing, I was looking at her list, and I said, I got to the singing part, and I thought, we've given up a lot, because when we first came home with our babies, we would sing to them, and they didn't know we couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, and they thought we were wonderful, and they would stop crying and look and listen. And I know a lot of people were told they couldn't sing, and they'd get into high school and they'd go try out for the choir, and they couldn't reach all the high notes, so they were just dismissed and were labeled, that they couldn't sing. But at home, I think that God commands us to sing. That sing and make melody in your heart, He said. So I taught my children how to sing, and what I discovered. And I hope you're doing some work while you're listening, because this is what this is for. What I discovered was people that had not been regularly in the worship assembly singing didn't have an ear for, or a voice for, the timing in songs. And so when we had friends that were over and we wanted to sing with them, they would give all the words an equal amount of time and make it sound like a march and there weren't any pauses or elongation of sound or anything like that. And because they had not sat next to people in a worship assembly, and it comes naturally to the ones that have grown up that way, you see. So my children grew up listening to that and then listening to us at home. So you didn't have to teach them timing, because they had figured it out. And generally, you don't have to know what all those notes are or what the dots are and anything if you have heard singing. It's like reading. Once you start reading, you start noticing how things are spelled. So you don't have to have a spelling bee or your mother list you all these things to learn to spell. You start seeing it when you're reading, that it's spelled that way. And so generally, if you are with someone who's singing, you will pick up the rhythm of it. And so if your children are home, you need to sing while you're washing dishes, while you're preparing food. Just sing, but watch your timing, because the reason now it's not the most important thing in the world. There's nothing in the scriptures that say you have to sing good timing. It just says we have to do everything decently and in order, and we have to be in harmony with one another. And so I was explaining to one of my children this old song. We were studying, here's how we came across it. We were studying fountains in the scriptures, and how many times fountains were referred to in the Old Bible and the New Bible, and how they were physical bodies of water underneath the ground that you could put a well or a cistern around and capture that water. And the fountains would be under pressure, and they would bubble up sometimes. And we found a picture of a fountain, an old cistern, and showed there were steps going down into it. And then I didn't I didn't find the scripture, but there was a scripture in Matthew about a man who was crippled and he had to be lowered into this fountain because he thought he could be healed by it. And the fountains often had, there was often sound waves and other minerals and things like hot springs that would heal people. And it was thought that an angel, I'm not sure it said it was thought that an angel or that an angel did go up and down the steps of this fountain or cistern and stir up the waters. And so he had to be lowered by other people into this water. And so we were studying this fountain story and what a fountain was, and we had pictures of the fountain. And then we studied in the New Scriptures, the New Testament, how many times in the Old Testament fountain was used as a figure of speech to represent a continual presence of wisdom or a source of something good, a source of joy, a source of everything that is good. And so if you don't think Titus 2 teachers can teach something like that, then you've never been a homeschooler, because that's how you do it. As you read something you talk about it will be a fountain of life. Oh, okay, what's a fountain? Let's go find out about fountains. Then you find out about the physical fountain, and then you try to connect how it was changed to a figure of, how you can change it. Everything can be changed to a figure of speech, and is in the scriptures. Fountain, river, mountain, tree. It's all used as figures of speech. Also, because that's how people would understand it, and enriches the meaning, enriches the language too. And so we found this song, Blessed Be the Fountain. Now that is not the same song that's the Fountain of Life or something, but it's a real old song, and it wasn't on, I couldn't find it on YouTube. Most of these old songs you can find, but I couldn't find it. So I have to sing it to you. So you can mute it if you want. But it's an old song that I just loved, and it took me 30 years to find it. And my son was over here, my oldest son was over here one day. He said, "You remember that song we heard one time at one congregation we went to?" And a little boy was leading it, and his father was so proud because it was when they were letting the children, the young men, learn how to be leaders. And he led this song, and oh, he had such good timing, and it was so... I'll tell you what timing is for in singing, and I think every mother should know this, because it gives emphasis to certain thoughts and certain words. Whereas if it's all the same amount of weight on each word, that's why we have emphasis in our voice. That's why we have inflection, and that's why we don't use a monotone, because people will tune out and fall asleep. And so this Blessed Be the Fountain has notes in it that where the bass has to sing 3 notes, well, then the soprano has to make sure they hold their sound to let the bass sing it. I don't know if you're familiar with how many times there's been maybe a very novice song leader that would get up there and sing through the song and finish before the bass has finished their little extra piece that they sing, and then charge into the next verse. And it's so embarrassing because you can't get those words in. It's the same with the little words by the tenor and by the alto. If you don't give them time to sing those, then the song kind of loses its heart. And while these things are not, necessary, and that God looks on the heart, and we're supposed to sing and make, as long as we're singing and make a melody in our heart. Now, I've been told I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, and I didn't make it to the choir at school. But because I had babies and I had children, I knew that I had to sing. And I'd rather them hear it from their mother's voice than think someone else was professional and go with that. And they all learned to sing, and they're like far and away beyond me as far as singing, and they can sing as groups. All the children and the grandchildren can sing, and whenever they come here, it's just the most beautiful sound because they can sing. Now see, and I've known other people that I thought wanted to homeschool their children, and they wanted to teach them music, but they didn't know music, and And I said, well, you just start singing something. Sing something that you heard, and you just start singing, and they'll be able to sing. And do you know, today, though I wouldn't have given a hope for this one lady, she came from a very rough life, not educated very well. She couldn't even speak the grammar very well. She mixed things up, but her children today can read, they can write fluently, and they can sing perfectly. So never lose faith in what God has given you as a woman to do. So I'm going to maybe try to scan this in for you so you can see it. And I'm going to do my best and sing it the way I would to a baby. Okay, so it won't be great, but I wanted you to hear it so you can see that you too can sing. And I want you to take note that I'm holding some words longer than others because that's the way it's written. And it's no fun, I don't think, to sing with people who don't know that. They gallop through these songs and give everything equal timing, and then it loses its emphasis and it loses its beautiful drama. Now, I can't find this to prove to you how it's supposed to sound, so I'm going to sing it to you anyway, and then we'll end so you don't have to be tortured further. Okay. Blessed be the fountain of life today, flowing free, flowing free. There the soul may wash all its sins away, in that fountain of life, flowing free. Oh, the blessed fountain of life, freely flowing, to that blessed fountain I'll go, and I'll wash and be clean. Many have been cleansed in that fountain of sin, flowing free, flowing free. Many yet will come and will wash therein, blessed fountain of life, flowing free. Oh, the blessed fountain of life, freely flowing, to that blessed fountain I'll go, and I'll wash and be clean. Linger not away from this fountain pure, flowing free, flowing free. For the guilty soul 'tis a wondrous cure, blessed fountain of life, flowing free. Oh, the blessed fountain of life, freely flowing, to that blessed fountain I'll go, and I'll wash and be clean. So your children don't really care if it's not really high-end singing or operatic singing or perfect, but if you know how to, if you've sat next to someone in the worship assembly who can sing, you're going to get the gist of this. And my children didn't have singing lessons or music lessons, but they sat in the assembly. And also we sang at home, and I sang while I washed dishes. My mother sang while she washed dishes, and we listened to the radio, and we noticed that even the popular songs had certain stretches and rhythms and power to some words and not so much to the others. Some were softer, some were harder, and that's how you make singing beautiful and fun. I have got a few more minutes, so you survived that. Now let's go to the homemaking. And the homemaking part, I'm going to talk today about how homemaking has to be interspersed among the members of the family. You don't clear I learned a long time ago there were some people who were having someone come and get their children so they could get their housework done. But what I wanted to do was incorporate housework with my children, so they would notice what I was doing and follow me around. And maybe, they would make a mess right behind me or in front of me just as I cleaned it up. But still, it was the principle of the thing that they would be walking alongside me, and I would be including them in everything that I did. And so we're going to interact amongst the family members. And everybody's different. We have different age groups, and they all have different needs. And if you have to stop and do something for someone, you just pick up where you left off, and you never get discouraged. And if you're in a small home, you have to take strategic placement of everything. I noticed if things are not put exactly in some place, there are some things that are magnetic, and you start setting them on a surface, and other things start coming. And so everything has to be strategically placed on my furniture, and everything's just wedged in a certain way. And that is to keep my sanity and to keep everything categorized and tidy. And even in the kitchen, I can't go in there and just set something down. It has to either be put away, put in the sink, or put in the dishwasher, or done something with. And it's the same with the mail. When I go and get the mail, on the way over to the house, I have a little walkway to come down, and I'll look at it, and the ones I'll shuffle it, and the things that I'm going to throw out goes in this little file here, and I'll be holding it with this, and then the things that are to me goes here, and Mr. S's stuff goes here, and anything else goes here, and I'll have it sorted by the time I get in, so that the stuff that goes in the trash goes immediately in the trash, and we never just set something down and sort through it again. And I learned that from Fly Lady, and it used to be called Sidetracked Home Executives, and there was a chapter on how when you go and get the mail, it gets touched 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different times because you're not being efficient with it. And I understand home is not always about efficiency, but for me, that helps me. And it keeps the clutter from going. Now, for children and for youth who have children at home, or even if you don't, it's never too late, I don't think it's too late to do a do-over, but I suggest having a journal and write down the things that they say and the things that they do, because years later they will enjoy reading it or getting you to read to them. And I wish I had done it, but I just didn't. And I think a lot of it was just being too tired or too busy, or not having had the example before me. And by the way, one of the reasons I use books in here is in lieu of, when I was younger, in lieu of older women, who seemed to be a dearth of it in those days when I was growing up. Many women were headed off for work, or just weren't taking the mandate seriously to teach the younger women. So I would get books, and I decided I'd just surround myself with the advice that other people had written in books. It's still women teaching, and that's why I read out of a lot of books, because it's just a replacement for all the advice and good things that we need to be taught. And there are so many good homemaking books out, but one of the things that I've never read is to write down, keep journals and write down what the children do and what they say, and they will really enjoy, because it gives them a stronger identity and a sense that they were brought into this world by God, and that they were loved and that they were appreciated, and that so much so that their progress was, I would love to read a book about myself and see, oh, when did I say this and when did I say that, and it makes them delight in who they are and in themselves. And you also might like to keep a journal about yourself and what your thoughts are, and keep track of, when you're home, keep track of the different sections of the day, whether it's the way the light comes in, the weather, your mood, what the dusk is like, what the dawn is like, and how you feel, and what it inspired you to do or not do. And this also goes a long way for the mind-body balance and for your health. So let me move on here. Another thing that I would say is one of the things that I do when my son comes over, I have one son that's in the area, and he comes over sometimes, and we look for knowledge and wisdom and for understanding in different things. And I said, when you come over now, you're going to have something to tell me. And we're like Elizabeth, where she told Darcy, we're both of such a taciturn nature that we don't want to say anything unless we'll astonish the whole room. Well, he and I are like that. I don't want to just have trivial talk. I want to astonish him, and he wants to astonish me. So we have different things that we talk about. And one of the things we did last time he was here, one week he comes and spends a day with me, and another week he comes and spends a day with Mr. S. And Mr. S shows him different things about composing, Bible lessons, and teaching. And I just do normal life living. And one of the things we did last time he came, now he was in the military, and he's still going to show me self-defense strategy and self-defense exercise. But we went outside, and we found on the web illustrations of anti-stress stretches, and we just did one of each for a second or two, and we both declared that we felt so much less tense when we quit. And so don't get stagnant if you are of a vital age. And also, I told you about character last time, and I alluded to marriage and raising children. I did want to talk more about marriage while I was here, but I don't know if I'm going to get to do that this time. Perhaps I should relegate it to an entire video. But one of the there's a list all through the New Testament and Old Testament of character qualities. Now, I told you in a previous video, and you probably won't be able to find it anywhere because I didn't label it, and that was a character was a tool, kind of like those little metal tools they use to flip these floorboards and stick them together when you're putting new flooring in. It's just a tool that looks like a paint can lifter and paint can cover lifter. It's a metal thing. It looks like an old-fashioned little bottle opener or something. And it was a tool that carved a symbol, a number or a letter or a picture into stone or wood. And it was called a character. Well, these pictures that were carved and these letters and numbers were referred to as characters. And so we were discussing this, my son and I, about how would you carve character into your personality and into your life, because those carvings rarely could be erased. They could fade a little bit, and they would get weather worn, but they were still visible. They're still there. So how do you get a character in you that's so indelible that it cannot be removed, and that you would always be truthful and brave and pure and true and have a deep contentment? How would you do that? Well, there are lists all through the scriptures of character qualities, and all of these can be part of your character. So I'll give you one of the lists, maybe two today. And one of them is naturally the love chapter of chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians. Love is patient. Love is kind. So when you're thinking about your marriage or your husband, can you be patient? Just practice that. Can you be kind? Those are two character qualities that will help marriage a lot. And of course, you can always, there's always the uncooperative person who doesn't want to respond to that, and that happens. But you can keep your side of that. At least you will have a clear conscience that you behaved in that character with those characteristics. And then I ran across another reference to character, and I did want to get to these envelopes too. Since my video is working, I might give you a double portion today, but I won't sing again, don't worry. And that is Romans chapter 5. I've referred to other lists like Philippians 4:8, Galatians 5:22, 2 Peter 1. And those all had lists in it, and I've recited them a time or two, but now I have another one, and it's Romans Romans 5, it says, and 3, and it has the word character in it. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. And so when we talk about stress, we're always trying to get at the bottom of stress. Why are we hit so much by stress, and why are people so knocked over by it, whereas in the past maybe not so much? Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and why is it hitting people so hard? For one thing, we're not buffered with anything. We're not shielded with the things that we need to be shielded with. We've kind of given up on a lot of stuff, doing a lot of things. And he said, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Well, if I were homeschooling you, we'd stop and I would make you do a little essay on what endurance meant. And you'd have to look up the root words, and you'd have to look up what original language it came from, and what it meant. And endurance produces character. And how would you endure something? It doesn't mean just tolerating or putting up with something. It's stronger than that. And character produces hope. And, this would entail such a big study. But character produces hope. If you've got these character qualities, there was another one here, faith, virtue, knowledge, self-control, steadfastness. So we would look up steadfastness in homeschooling and do a whole lot of study on that. And then we would talk about it as we were getting dinner ready. And then we would talk about it some more. And then we'd talk about it before they went to bed. And then when I went to see if everyone was okay and they'd fallen asleep, they usually had some papers or books across their chest that they'd been reading at the last light, trying to get at the bottom of this. Godliness and brotherly affection and love. And then the other one was Philippians 4:8, goodness, loveliness, purity, truth, etc. And Galatians 5:22, goodness, meekness, kindness, etc. All those are character qualities you can acquire, and you could study each one. And so sometime we'll do the hope one, because there is a scripture that says hope we have. It's in Hebrews, I believe. Hope we have as an anchor to the soul. Well, I'm going to show you how an anchor works. And see, we don't know these things. Our culture is not around us, who knows how an anchor works and why it's shaped the way it is and what it's supposed to do. And so we want to do that. In fact, we're going to be doing that on the cruise that I'm taking my family on here at the Manse, turning the Manse into a ship. And that's going to be quite interesting. So, and speaking of that, one of the things that came in one of these birthday envelopes, I have to show you. It was the nicest thing. They just analyzed my characteristics and my likes and dislikes so much that they were able to address it through all this stuff. I think I can only do one of these, but one of the children were so clever. They included, it says, you are here. Okay, fridge cards. Let vacationers know where they are the week that they visit you in your eclectic resort. Just post on fridge or on an easel. Okay, this is because I have turned this place into an inn, and I've turned it into a homestead, and I've turned it into a fishing resort, and I've turned it into a train, and I've turned it in. It's going to be a ship soon, but it's fun to go to the Dollar Tree and go get all the stuff to make it look shippy. But anyway, so this is what they did. They got all these pictures and they put them on little cards, and this says on the homestead. Isn't that cute? I'm going to have a lot of fun doing the homestead and on the luxury train. So I'll just post this on my fridge with a magnet. And glamping. Oh yes, remember my sheet tents? Well, I have sheet tents in the summer for everybody. And the chateau in the countryside, yes, we've done that one. We're going to do that one again. And at the beach, which is, I'm not sure, we will do the beach. We do have a couple of boxes of sand. So we might do that. The cruise ship, but look at the ship. So that's what and at the manor house. Yes, we'll do that one in the winter. Um, so, and I wanted to go through more of this, but it just gives me more content. So later, when I'm talking to you, I can open up another one of these envelopes and do it. Just let me have a peek here and see what else there was that I missed. Some of the younger ones gave me such good stuff here. Remember I used to talk about the creepy house syndrome like around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and if you people weren't familiar with homemaking, and around 4 o'clock in the afternoon you'd got this eerie sense of kind of a quietness, and the noise of the world settled down, and then you had this sound that you weren't used to, which was quiet, and how you have to adjust to that and fill that time up with something. And they have written me a story. This was from Charles Dickens' Our Mutual Friend, Chapter 15, Two New Servants. Mrs. Boffin and the Creepy House Syndrome. Can you believe this? I never had the feeling in the house before, said Mrs. Boffin, and I have been about it alone at all hours of the night. I have been in the house when death was in it. I have been in the house when murder was a new part of his adventures, and I never had a fright in it yet. And won't again, my dear, said Mr. Boffin. Depend on it, it comes of thinking and dwelling on that dark spot. Yes, but why didn't it come before? Asked Mrs. Boffin. The draft on Mr. Boffin's philosophy could only be met by the gentleman with the remark that everything that is at all must begin some time. Then, tucking his wife's arm under his own, that she might not be left by herself to be troubled again, he descended to release Wegg, who, being something drowsy after his plentiful repast, and constitutionally of a shirking temperament, was well enough pleased to stump away without doing what he had come to do, and was paid for doing. Do you remember Mr. Wegg was hired to read to Mr. Boffin because he couldn't read? And I found with any of these old stories, watch the 1990s editions of the movies. They do an excellent job and follow the script pretty well. And then you get an idea of what is going on, and you can see it better. And let me see. And I was going to read out of Wives and Daughters to you, but that will have to wait till the next time the video is working. And also the Jane Austen diet, where he has a little chapter here on stress. So ladies, I hope this has done your heart good. And if not, there's so much out there that you can listen to and watch, and have my favorites. I always enjoy certain ladies. I really like some of the younger women too, some of the creative things that they do. But like I told you, sometimes you do have to stop and watch, and I'm hoping that you got a lot done and you didn't just stop and watch. So ladies, I love you. Stay close to Christ. Thank you for all you do for me, and see you next time. Bye.